My name is Art Hill. I'm from Las Cruces.
Hold it right up high here.
Why don't you think major corporations should have to pay their fair share of taxes? It didn't help in the boost.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that corporations should pay their fair share. That's not the question. The question is, would we take away legitimate tax breaks from one set of businesses and not another? If we're going to eliminate business write-offs, then we should do it equally. We should not segment out society as different pieces of our economy. So that's my problem when we begin to segment out the oil companies and say, you got to pay more than your percent. For instance, I think Google should pay income tax, but they send all the revenues out through the different countries of the world, and actually by the time it gets here, they don't pay tax. So I think that GE should be paying taxes, but they're taking win credits. They actually are getting subsidies. GE is actually taking checks from the government, which is significantly different than the business write-offs that the oil companies have. So I think that that when we create these subsidies, these payments to companies, that's a problem. But I do not think what we had described in the Senate hearings were subsidies. I think they were describing a legitimate business write-off, and they were wanting to differentiate oil companies from other companies. If we're going to do that, then the companies that are unfairly treated will simply pick up and leave the nation. So that's it. Number three was, where was three? It was right here in the middle.
I'm Tom Reeder from Las Cruces. I'm here to bug you.
Pick it up. I didn't quit flying C-130s that ringing and
Okay,
still in
well,
my ears.
I'm a retired civil servant and living
Thank
very
you.
comfortable and got a healthcare plan and all that stuff. If you look at that chart where we're gonna go bankrupt, and I just finished reading When Money Dies about the Weimar Republic in Germany, we're gonna have to take a haircut. So.
Well, use a different analogy for me.
Okay. I'm not asking much from Congress, I just want you guys to take a trim, okay? I would like to see you stand up and say, we're gonna take a pay cut back to where we were when Nancy and buddies raised their salary, but didn't allow any COLAs.
Yeah, I actually put an amendment in. You remember those days in the early part of this congressional session when we began to give amendments all night long? I don't know if y'all, anybody here watch C-SPAN all night long? We can get you professional help for that if you want. Anyway, but the debates were going on till like 2 and 3 in the morning, start back again about 8 in the next morning. Well, there were 700 amendments put forward, and one of the amendments that I put up was that everybody making $150,000 or more in the government should take a 15 or 10% cut. It did not see the light of day, and I haven't yet gotten back in favor with my colleagues, but I still would agree with you 100%. That leadership again.
I'm Myron Cherry. I live in Radium Springs. On TV, we see all this propaganda that's put out there by tax-free foundations and tax-exempt organizations. Why don't you go after them?
Well,
because they're politically active. I mean, their message is political, but they're tax-free.
there is you're exactly right. A lot of the 501c3s have become very politically oriented, but the unfortunate thing is that they're grouped in the 501c3 category with churches, and no one's figured out how to separate the political 501c3s from the churches, because you simply would define your 501c3 that we're a church that believes in right to work or the not right to work or whatever. So, I mean, it's very complex.
Not pay taxes.
Yeah, it's just complex. And know that Senator Grassley tried to take this on about 4 years ago. And he really got at it, and all the churches were eating his lunch. I mean, he's a strong conservative Christian guy, but the churches are eating him up because of this exact thing. But you're right. There are a lot of groups that are holding tremendous assets, billions in assets, and they're running political messages, and they're doing political activities tax-free. And it's simply wrong. They're gaming the system, and somehow we need to figure our way around that, too.
Yes, Congressman. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Congressman Pearce. My name is Art Harvey. I'm a constitutional conservative here in Las Cruces. If we had a fair or flat tax where everybody had to pay and where 40% are not paid anything, and we had targeted spending bills instead of unlimited spending bills, We will eliminate both problems. We will increase our revenue, and we will decrease spending by eliminating nonsense regulatory agencies like NLRB, EPA, the Department of Education, CIA. Would you support things like that?
Yes, when my first term, one of the commitments that I made early on, I began to be a co-sponsor of the fair tax. Generally would prefer the fair tax, the sales tax, over the flat tax, because the tax we have today was a flat tax 100 years ago. In other words, they have done exactly what they would do again, they being the people who don't want to live with fiscal discipline, who think your pocket is ever deeper and deeper and reach further into it. And so I would prefer the fair tax. That way people who get illegal incomes would for the first time pay taxes. Right now, if you sell dope or run prostitutes or something, you get to live tax-free in America. And so there's just something wrong with that game. And so let's go to something that would tax these people. Also, one of the biggest leakages out of our system, when we look at the, again, the 2 point, you look at this one, the 2.2, we're not going to put it up there, but the revenue is one of the big leakages out of here is people working for cash right now. And and so there's no way to fix that. The IRS has zero plan to go in and take on the cash economy, and a sales tax would fix it right there. And so the sales tax has always been kind of my preferred reform. Everybody is now beginning to clamor for some reform. When the American people kind of coalesce, I will guarantee it's about to happen. Who was the third one? Is right up here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Harvey Baldwin from Las Cruces. In the redistribution of wealth, which is going on both economically within the U.S. and within the world, my strongest point is, why are we sending so much money overseas helping our enemies, and what can you do to cut that money off from places like Saudi Arabia, all of the Middle East other than Israel?
Back to the gentleman's question that was right here about we cut a pretty small amount. I don't know if y'all were paying attention, but that vote on the CR came up on a Friday night, and it was 10:30 at night. We were sitting there. We still didn't have an agreement, and I stood up at that point and said to our leadership, you know, it's not that hard to find 30 or 40 billion if you begin to cut off the money to people who hate us, and why don't we do that? If we don't have an agreement, then put that in. It is roundly appreciated by every American. I don't know anybody who wants to continue to fund people that hate us. I don't think we have to pay people to hate us. I think they'll do it for free. So anyway, we can make these cuts, and that's one I would gladly support, and one that we have supported. But for some reason, I don't know if it's the Senate or whatever, is just not agreeing to that. I promised to come over to this. I'm going to go 1, 2. You're a second time question, aren't you? Are you second or first time? You. Okay, I'll go to you then. No, I'm going to go to the young lady there. You be number 3. Okay.
Hello? Okay. So we all know you voted for the Ryan budget. You voted to cut $1.4 trillion. My name is Lucia. I'm sorry.
Citizenship?
You voted to cut $1.4 trillion in Medicaid. 1 in 4 New Mexicans are on Medicaid. You're supposed to represent New Mexico. We have over 500,000 recipients on Medicaid. 300,000 of those are children. When it comes to oil and big corporations, you fight. When are you going to start fighting for children in New Mexico?
When you guys quit having these single babies?
Actually, please, we respect all points of view here, but the truth is that there were no cuts to Medicare or Medicaid in the Ryan budget. Those are simply things that are thrown out, and you just have to go and find those cuts for me. If you want to show me where the cuts actually are, that's one thing. Now, there are people who are saying that it creates a voucher plan. That's a little bit different from premium support. Premium support on Medicare is exactly, again, what President Clinton suggested in '99. So, again, I just would just say that the budget that Ryan put forward does not cut Medicare or Medicaid in the next years. You can see we've got a chart that shows those numbers actually going out. Yes, ma'am. That's true, yeah.
My name is Vanessa Wills. I'm from Santa Teresa. And My comment is this, is I believe that politicians in Washington DC are out of touch with reality because they're allowed to stay there too long. And I've received 2 inheritances in my life from my mom and my dad when they passed away. And when you get money that you don't work for, it's very easy to spend it. So, and that's what I believe happens to our politicians. So here's my question, is we've tried, the American people, to the best of my knowledge, I'm barely politically literate, but we've tried to vote in term limits, which I believe is an answer, because if you have to go back out and work and know what it's like to have to say no to dinners out and vacations and all that, you might be better at spending those trillions that come at you.
Yeah.
So why do we keep trying to vote it, we the people, try to vote it, and then we have lawyers who say it's unconstitutional?
Well, I don't know if anybody's ever said it's unconstitutional. A lot of states have actually implemented it. It's never, I don't think, ever been a vote. I'm okay with term limits, but you gotta figure out 2 things right with that. If you limit the elected official, then you've gotta figure out how to limit the unelected officials. That means that the hardest problem I run up against are bureaucrats who know that they can outlast me. That I might be here 2 years, I might be 10 years, but they can simply change, they can stop any change that's going on.
Do you mean special interests by bureaucrats?
No, the bureaucrats. These are people, for instance, the Forest Service. The Forest Service simply said that we're going to stop cutting trees 20 or 30 years ago, and they've stopped cutting trees, so it's completely killed the timber industry in most of the states in America. That has caused our 2.2, that's caused the 2.2 to shrink down because those people are off. So one of the vivid examples is the National Park Superintendent out at White Sands. Just my first year, 2003, he put a bid out that said, if you want to bid on the concession here in White Sands, that you have to build new restrooms and you have to build a new parking lot. Well, that was going to be $800,000. And the company only had $800,000 a year in revenues, and their net was probably $60,000, and they had to pay their owner's salary out of the 60. And so suddenly they're going to have to be $800,000. And so I went to him and I said, you know, why are you asking these people to build the restrooms? He said, because we did a census. He said, we watched, we counted every car that came in for months. And every car, they would come and they would park right there, and they'd walk across. He said, first of all, they'd go into the restroom, and then they'd walk across and go into that curio store. I said, do tell, so that's the reason you're gonna do it. I said, you arrogant SOB, I wanna know the census for the cars that parked there, went to the restroom, went in the curio shop, got back in the car and drove back to Minnesota. Because I think that they drove here to see those White Sands over there. I don't think they came here to see the curio shop. And until you give me the census, then you pull that bid down. Otherwise, I'm going to come after you and get your job. I'm going to make you pay out of your personal pocket that $800,000. And we have multiple instances of bureaucrats just saying, you can't touch me. You can't touch me. And so the deal with the lizard, you know, we're pushing the lizard because the Fish and Wildlife Service says we can. We can stop the economic activity associated with the lizard. I said, well, I'm not going to just stand by idly. We're going to fight it. And I said, plus I'm not going to let you fight anonymously. I'm going to give it a name. I said, everybody knows my name. They can call me, they can write to me, they can come and catch me on the street. But nobody knows your name. I'm not going to just fight the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm going to fight you personally. So if you're going to limit the elected ones, know that the unelected people are even worse. The second group of people that you must consider if you're going to limit the elected officials are the staffers. Staffers stay in Washington, and many of the freshmen went up there with bold new ideas, but they had staffers that have been there 20 years, and pretty soon those bold new ideas are averaged down by staffers saying, you know, we've got to be careful, we've got to be careful, we've got to do that. So anyway, and so, yes, term limits. But, you know, term limits happened in this last election. We had people who've been there 40 years. Committee chairman got beat by Facebook campaigns. So anyway, the American people are finding a way to give voice to this frustration. The frustration that we shouldn't be there 50 years is adequate and right. But figure out how to check the power of the government some other way. Yes, ma'am.